In this video I'm going to show what to do when you make a mistake and you incorrectly measure your quilt top and your pattern comes up short. Here on the screen you can see there's the edge of my pattern, but if you look down here on my quilt you can see I've got a lot more to go. So what can I do? Well, I'll show you. I've stopped IQ, I pressed the pause button, so this is the screen we have. Now what I'm going to do is realign IQ. So I'm going to touch realign, and first I'm going to move the machine slightly, so I need to go into basting mode so that I can clip the threads. So I'm moving the machine so I can cut the threads. Okay, now I'm going to touch finished. Okay, it says touch a reference point on the screen. This is where I stopped. Now I'm going to fool IQ into thinking it really hasn't finished that row. So I'm going to touch zoom on and then pan until I see that point again. Pan. So I'm looking for that point on the flower. And there it is. So I'm going to touch that as my reference point. So I have to turn off zoom, touch that as my reference point, continue. Now normally I would then move my needle to that point on the quilt, but I'm going to leave it at the point where it actually stopped. So IQ has now realigned itself. It still thinks it's got a lot more to do, so I'm going to touch OK. Now as soon as I touch OK, the machine is going to want to move to the place where I stopped quilting, so I need to touch stop almost immediately. So here we go, OK. Okay, now I'm going to touch stop, and now I'm going to touch restart, and I'm moving my machine back to where the stitching stopped, which is there. Okay, now I'm going to touch OK. Just pulled up the bobbin thread, and now I'm going to touch continue, and now I'm going to touch start. And when I get close to the edge, then I'm going to do something else. So we'll watch IQ quilt until we get close to the edge. I'm going to let it do this little flower. And it comes around. Okay, I'm touching pause because I'm at the edge of the quilt here, and if I let it continue, look up on the screen, if I let it continue it's going to stitch a long way off the edge of my quilt. So at this point I want to clip the pattern. I want to cut off this edge so it doesn't stitch way off the end of the backing. So I'm touching that edge, and my needle is just about at the edge of my quilt. So I could either touch snap to needle, or I can just drag the line. I'm going to drag it right there. Okay. It says move the needle to the restart location. Well, it's right there. I haven't moved the machine. So I'm going to touch OK. Start. And now it comes right down the edge of the quilt. And that's the end of the pattern. So that explains how to extend your pattern when you've measured the width of the quilt wrong. Now when I go to do the next row, even if I'm not advancing the quilt, I need to realign IQ again so it will start in the right place. Okay, this is a little recap. When I had stitched the row to here, I realized that it wasn't long enough. So I stopped the machine at this point. Then I touched realign, and I touched this point on the screen as a realignment point, but I actually left my needle over here. So then I started IQ stitching again, and it went around and round, and when I got to the edge I then needed to clip the pattern. So I stopped IQ when I could see it was close to this edge, and then I clipped the pattern so that it would stitch just at the edge of this quilt.